There is a strange ache that stalks the modern psyche, a torment woven not from cruelty, nor even the jagged edges of remembered trauma, but from the slow erosion of wholeness. You may feel it in the late hours, when sleep evades you and thought becomes a serpent devouring its own tail. It is not mere worry, not the trivial noise of indecision. It is a deeper, older ache, a trembling in the soul that comes from knowing, somewhere beyond words, that you are not living all that you could be. It is the silent grief of unlived lives humming in the chambers of your being. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. The more you engage and stay with the content, the more YouTube shares these timeless insights with others. By doing so, you're not only helping this channel grow, but also spreading Carl Jung's transformative wisdom to those seeking meaning and inner truth. Let's dive into the depth of the psyche together. The overthinker is not fragile, nor weak, nor lost in some meaningless fog of rumination. No, they are the bearer of an unseen weight, the unbearable lightness of infinite possibility pressing upon a finite existence. Each thought, each spiral of doubt, is a ghost knocking against the bars of consciousness, saying, "I am the self you did not choose. I am the path you abandoned. I am the dream you left behind." The mind does not torment itself for sport. It wrestles with a truth too vast to hold, that we are never only who we are, but always also who we might have been. The multiplicity of our being stalks us, demanding recognition, haunting every choice with the unchosen, every step with the roads left untrodden. This is no madness, it is myth wearing the mask of anxiety. It is the psyche's ancient longing for completion, its relentless drive to draw every scattered fragment of potential back into the circle of the self. What you call overthinking is the song of the unlived life echoing through your nervous system. Every unlived self is not dead, but dreaming, waiting in the darkness of the unconscious, calling out to be remembered. When the conscious mind denies that call, when fear and habit tighten the reins of life, the soul protests. It claws at the mind, looping thoughts, pinning possibilities, refusing silence because silence would mean death to the selves that were never allowed to breathe. We think we know ourselves, but we are also the dancer we once were before someone told us to grow up. We are the poet who stopped writing the day practicality won the argument. We are the wanderer we caged behind routine, the lover we silenced out of fear, the warrior we starved because gentleness seemed safer. These selves do not fade, they pace the corridors of the psyche like restless orphans, longing for home. And the overthinking mind is their howl, their clamor at the locked gates of our identity, demanding entry. Dreams betray the truth of this torment. Overthinkers often dream of endless hallways lined with doors, some ajar, others sealed shut. Behind each one, a different life pulses a forgotten friendship, an art never created, a risk never taken, a self that still burns like a candle in a locked room. The dreamer wanders but cannot choose, caught in the paralysis of multiplicity, fearing that to open one door is to close the rest forever. Waking life is no different. Decisions feel like betrayals. Every yes feels like a funeral for countless other possibilities. And yet, what if this torment is not a flaw, not a curse, but initiation? What if overthinking is the first stage of psychic alchemy, the blackening, where the old certainties rot and dissolve to make space for transformation? The ancient alchemists knew that the beginning of true change is chaos, the burning, the fermentation, the impossible tension of opposites. Overthinking is this stage of dissolution, the psyche trying to reconcile the infinite within the finite, trying to prepare the heart to make a choice that honors not just oneself, but the whole constellation of the soul. Beneath the circling thoughts lies a deeper fear, not that you will choose wrong, but that in choosing you will lose a part of yourself forever. Shame and grief twist around every decision. We stall not because we lack conviction, but because we feel the sacred weight of all that might be exiled with a single act of will. And yet, to wait forever is to fracture endlessly, to become a ghost in one's own life. I once heard a dream from a woman whose mind was sharp as a blade and just as restless. She stood at a long banquet table surrounded by strangers, but as she looked closer, every face was hers. One self wore a painter's stained overalls, another a traveler's boots. Another cradled a child with fierce tenderness. Another gleamed in warrior's armor. Each one hungry, each one alive, each one staring at her with expectant eyes. She held no food to give them, only the aching knowledge that they were all her, all starving for expression, all waiting to be chosen. This is the secret pain of overthinking. It is not confusion, but the unbearable clarity that there are more lives inside us than time will ever allow. The soul is a cathedral of infinite rooms, and we are forever haunted by the ones we have not entered. Yet this haunting is sacred. It is the psyche reminding us that life is not a narrow corridor, but an ocean of becoming. That every decision is not just a choice, but a communion with destiny. Perhaps the purpose is not to escape overthinking, but to sit with it as one would sit with an old oracle, to listen for the deeper truth beneath the noise, to feel the grief of unlived selves and offer them something other than silence, to make choices not to banish these selves, but to weave their essence into whatever path we dare to walk, turning every decision into a small act of reclamation. And now, dear traveler of this dream-lit path, I offer you a ritual invitation. Imagine you are standing before a vast, ancient tree at the edge of twilight, its branches heavy with lanterns, each one glowing softly with a life you might have lived. The air hums with possibility. In your palm rests a single number, a symbol whispered to you from the roots of your own being. It carries the weight of all you have longed for, all you have feared to choose, all you are ready to reclaim. Perhaps it is the number of selves still wandering your inner corridors, or the number of doors you vow to open in the waking world. Offer this number to the tree. Hang it like a lantern among the others, knowing it will shine there forever as witness to your becoming. And when you return from this vision, inscribe that number below in the comments as a sacred gesture, not to me, but to the timeless depths within you, sealing your promise to honor the unlived life and let no fragment of your soul be forgotten again. These images are not fantasy, they are psychic truths. They show us that the self is not singular, but manifold, and that overthinking often arises when the ego tries to maintain a singular identity in the face of inner plurality. The mind says, I must be this one, but the soul whispers, you are also that one, and the tension between them becomes unbearable. The solution is not to silence the mind, nor is it to obey every impulse of the soul. It is to enter the sacred work of dialogue, to bring the orphaned selves to the fire, to ask, what do you need from me, and to listen, not to fix, not to conquer, but to witness. The psyche does not demand resolution. It seeks recognition. This is why solitude for the overthinker is both a curse and a medicine. In solitude, the voices grow louder, but in solitude, they can finally be heard. And if heard with reverence, they begin to harmonize. The clamor becomes a chorus. The mind softens, the heart steadies, the anxiety shifts into awe. Is this what I mean by initiation? The overthinker is being initiated into the mystery of the self's multitudes. They are not being punished for their sensitivity. They are being invited to descend to walk the labyrinths, to face the minotaur of indecision, not as an enemy, but as a gatekeeper. For it is in the depths of that labyrinth that the true treasure waits. Not certainty, but wholeness. Not simplicity, but integration. And from that integration, decisions no longer feel like betrayals. They become blessings. One path is chosen, not because it is perfect, but because it is alive. The others are not discarded. They are honored. They are carried within. It is in this carrying within that the soul becomes vast. The overthinker learns that choosing one path does not mean abandoning the others forever. It means choosing a vessel in which the others can live symbolically. The artist may not hold a brush every day, but she may bring her vision to her parenting. The traveler may never leave the city, but he may explore the landscapes of literature or the corridors of imagination. The unlived selves, when acknowledged, become at least not saboteurs, but make no mistake, this is not a simple task. It is not a single epiphany, but a series of deaths and rebirths for the overthinker. Each decision can feel like a small funeral. The psyche mourns what might have been, but this mourning is sacred. It is the cost of embodiment. To be fully human is to say yes to one life and no to infinite others. It is to grieve and to go on. And so I say to the overthinker, do not fear your thoughts, but do not mistake them for truth. Let them speak, but do not let them rule. Beneath the swirl of thinking is a knowing, quiet pulse of intuition, a current beneath the waves. Find that current. Trust it. It will not always feel rational, but it will feel real. It is the voice of the self, not the ego, not the fear-bound child, but the wise totality that knows who you are becoming. The self does not demand certainty. It asks for sincerity. It does not require that every door be opened, only that the door you choose is walked through with presence, and presence, true presence, silences the ghosts, not by banishing them, but by turning them into ancestors, guides, echoes of what you might still become in some symbolic way. I recall another dream this time. A man haunted by indecision in love. He dreamt of walking through a city where every building was a version of his former self. Each one begged him to stay, to re-enter, to remember. But at the end of the street was a house he had never seen. It was quiet, simple. No voices called from within. And yet, when he approached, he felt peace. This dream, I told him, was not about abandoning his past. It was about making space for his future. The house was not the answer. It was the invitation to choose again, not from guilt, but from grace. Such is the paradox of the overthinker's journey. You are called not to eliminate your complexity, but to hold it, to become the vessel in which contradiction can coexist. This is the essence of individuation, not the elimination of parts, but the orchestration of them, a symphony of selves, each with its note, its silence, its purpose. And when this orchestration begins, when the ego surrenders its grip, when the inner democracy is honored, and decisions come not from fear, but from fidelity to the self, you may still feel the ache of the unlived, but it will be a gentle ache, not a torment, a memory, not a prison, a poem, not a scream. This is where true power resides, not in certainty but in capacity. The capacity to carry what you are, what you were, what you might have been. The capacity to listen without obeying, to feel without being swallowed, to dream without fleeing the day. And when that day finally arrives, when the overthinker becomes the soul-bearer, then the thinking itself transforms. It no longer devours. It dialogues. It no longer loops. It lands. Thoughts become threads, weaving meaning rather than unraveling it. The inner cacophony quiets, not because the voices are silenced, but because they have been heard, honored, given their rightful place at the inner round table. At this table, the self resides not as dictator, but as elder. It listens to the anxious one, the dreamer, the skeptic, the idealist, the wounded child. It considers each voice with care, but then it decides not with cold calculation, but with grounded wisdom. The self says yes. And in that, yes, the multitude boasts not in submission, but in trust from this ground, the overthinker can finally move not perfectly, not without doubt, but with depth. Their steps carry the resonance of the whole self. Not just the frightened fragment, they are no longer haunted, but accompanied their unlived lives. Walk not beside them, not behind them, they are part of the procession, part of the prayer. And if on some days the overthinking returns, as it inevitably will, it is no longer feared. It is understood the mind is not the enemy, it is the messenger. The churning thoughts. Thoughts are not punishments, they are reminders that you are complex, that you contain galaxies, that even stillness must be relearned. So you return to the breath, to the body, to the quiet act of choosing not with urgency, but with reverence. You choose this moment, this path, this word not because it is flawless, but because it is yours, and in that fidelity the soul roots deeper. This is the hidden message of the overthinker. This is the myth behind the mind, that you are not cursed with confusion, you are blessed with vision. You do not suffer from indecision, you suffer from the magnitude of what you know, of what you feel, of what you carry. Let that suffering not harden you. Let it awaken you. Let it remind you that your mind is not your master, but your mirror. That your thoughts are not shackles, but symbols that beneath every question is a longing, not for an answer, but for wholeness, and let that longing guide you, not to perfection, but to presence, not to certainty, but to connection, not to control, but to communion with the vast, mysterious self that you are in that communion. There is peace in that peace, there is love in that love. Finally, there is room to live,